Hello, class. Welcome to your lecture. Today we'll talk about the changing world, especially in regard to technology that affects communication. It's important, especially those among us who are younger, to understand how quickly all of this has changed. For people who have witnessed it firsthand, it has been lightning fast. And even historically, historians will tell you that this is a time of unprecedented change. So think about first how long it took after the creation of the world for someone to think of the wheel, or electricity, or telephones. And then look at the rate of change in the past 30 years. It's incredible. Now, I hope this discussion will give you a better understanding of how difficult it may be for older people in your lives. And when you work with people who are technologically challenged, it may help you be more understanding. Plus, I hope this discussion will help when you're trying to communicate with older audiences. All right, what we'll learn this week. I remember. A lot of this is what I remember, but it really is just those changes in communication technologies which have happened in your lifetime. And we'll take a brief look into how things may look in the not-so-distant future if things continue to progress as quickly as they have been over the past 30 years. Intercultural communication. We can make some really stupid mistakes sometimes when we think we're all operating from the same cultural backgrounds and understandings. And so we're going to talk about this. Mediated communication versus face-to-face communication. Now, this is a debate in academia, and I'm sure among students as well. Which method of communication or instruction is best? Is it possible, even likely, that some people actually communicate more effectively and more freely when some technology mediates their communication? Perils of the cyber world. We're going to go over very quickly some things you should consider when posting anything on Facebook, photo sharing sites, social media venues of any kind. I just hope this is a quick reminder and that you all know all of this already. And why should we care? There are some good reasons why these topics are included in a basic communication class for college students, so we will discuss why you should care. All right, at the risk of sounding like that old grandpa who always told stories about how he used to have to walk 10 miles to school in 4 feet of snow, let's take a look at a picture very similar to the first computer my husband ever brought home. Now, this was not that long ago. It had a nasty habit of freezing up and losing all the work I'd spent hours on, but other than that, we were absolutely amazed with this. I can remember vividly the first time I looked up information for a story. Middle of the night, I was writing on Jerry Punch. You might know him from his days as a commentator for NASCAR. I was writing a story on him, and I just couldn't believe that I could actually go up and find his bio information. All right, something else that's a little different. You might be interested to know that back in those days, the late 70s, it was illegal to have an answering machine, which of course would have included any kind of voicemail. It was against the law to record people's voices without their permission. We have come a long way, baby. And I am a video editor, and back during that time, we were still editing video in a linear fashion. When I was in college, we would lay down the shots from one tape player to another tape player. If you made a mistake or wanted to change something, you either had to overlay what was already there, making sure you had it timed exactly correctly, or start from the problem spot and over-edit the whole rest of the video. None of this moving shots all around in a non-linear fashion as we have now. All of this has happened in the past 30 to 40 years. Since many of your parents graduated from college, and many of them are still pretty young, right? The pace of change has been absolutely astounding. Part of the reason why this matters to you today is because all of this change, especially the change which has occurred with the internet and social media and electronics, such as smartphones, iPads, hotspots at every coffee shop and McDonald's, means the boundaries of our communities have been blown wide open. Before all of this change, most of us communicated with people we had grown up with, who were very similar to us and looked a lot like us. Now you can chat with or receive news reports from anyone in the world, even tweets from the middle of a war zone. So this means we are potentially communicating across cultures, national boundaries, across age groups. Now it's all very exciting, but it can be dangerous as well. Now we're going to talk about the dangerous part later, but let's watch this little video to get a glimpse of the kind of communicating we may be doing in the very near future. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. You saw some great examples in that video of intercultural communications, almost literally face-to-face via technology. You can see that even the lines between computer-mediated and face-to-face communication are beginning to blur and will continue that trend. Remember that intercultural may mean much more than simply Americans talking to Chinese or people from India, right? When we say culture, what do we mean? Well, here's the definition from your textbook. The language, values, beliefs, traditions, and customs people share and learn. So let's think about that. Let's think about subcultures. Cultures that exist all around us. So we have the larger culture, like our American culture, but what about within that, the subcultures? If we find ourselves in a different culture, it's possible that we won't even understand what people around us are talking about. So think about differences in age, religion. Hey, I work with the North Carolina Baptists for years, and believe me, they have a language and terminology all of their own. How about bikers? How about gamers? How about techies? They all have their own acronyms and terms that they all understand. We may not. That's not even taking into consideration race or ethnicity or language, which we traditionally consider to be, of course, different cultures. Co-cultures. Many of us exist in more than one culture. So this means we live in two or more of these subcultures at one time. Now, why is this important? Well, you need to understand that just because you live in a culture where you all accept the same ideas as truths and it's acceptable to say certain things, this may not be the case in other contexts. Now, I don't know how many times I've seen public figures get themselves into major trouble because they say something that they have said for years in front of friendly audiences, but then they say it in a different place and immediately it becomes a scandal. One of the most recent examples that comes to mind is with Paula Deen, the Southern cooking show host. You remember her. She freely and nonchalantly admitted she had used the N-word in the past. Now, she said she doesn't use it any longer and that she thinks it's a derogatory word that she and her family no longer use. But she obviously did not anticipate that this admission would nearly topple her little cooking empire. People started dropping her immediately from advertising. You might remember a lawmaker who said, Todd Akin, who said that women who are raped cannot get pregnant, that their bodies shut down their capability during a rape. Ludicrous statement that was a firestorm for weeks during his campaign. How about Mitt Romney, who said he wasn't going to worry about the 47% of Americans who he supposed would support his opponent in the presidential race? 47%. He was speaking to what he thought was a friendly audience, but he didn't realize, amazingly, that there might be somebody in that crowd unfriendly and videotaping. Well, these are all examples of statements that people make in their own groups or cultures. They play fine there. They might even get nods of approval all around, but they don't play well outside of that culture. So when we start thinking globally and across cultures, when we stop to think how this is going to sound to people outside of our little subculture, we are less likely to say things that sound really stupid and uninformed. Now, that is not to say that you don't say controversial or shocking things, right? We don't need a bunch of wimps running around afraid we're going to ever offend anybody. But that's only to say that you try to understand the impact that these words will have when you make them. Understand what's at stake before you speak. Your book has some good sections on cultural values and norms. Sometimes communicating between cultures has to do with understanding what not to say. Some cultures are less forthright with their opinions. They might value more nuance in language. Some cultures are more concerned with putting the benefits of the community over themselves. Individualism versus collectivism. Americans then may offend people from those cultures because we are so individualistic in our thinking. If you're not aware of these differences, you might be totally confused as to why your conversation falls flat or you fail at convincing someone of a point that seems completely logical to you. And developing your intercultural communication competence. Those of you who live in multicultural areas, you are so fortunate to have the world literally coming to your doorstep. This is a great opportunity to develop some understanding of how to communicate cross-culturally, which will become more and more important throughout your lifetime. This is going to be a part of your discussion board this week. You'll need to find someone from a different culture, and by this, I specifically mean someone who is from a different country and whose primary language is not English. So don't go find me a biker, or techie. We want someone from specifically a different language-speaking culture, and you're going to talk to them. But look for more details in your discussion board assignment. Okay, so let's talk about mediated versus face-to-face communication. Mediated is anytime communication happens through some media, like email, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, texting, iChatting, you name it. Face-to-face, of course, is good old-fashioned sitting and talking. This includes public speaking, group discussions, boardroom chats, that kind of thing. Synchronous is a key word here. This means that it happens in real time. Synchronous. Face-to-face is definitely synchronous. You talk. I listen at the exact same time. I answer fairly immediately. Asynchronous is like email. You send a message, and at some point, I answer you back. It's not usually instantaneous. But what is Skyping or video chat? Is that mediated or face-to-face? It's certainly synchronous, right? But is it mediated or face-to-face? Ugh. The lines are getting blurry. How about iChatting or text messaging? Is that synchronous or asynchronous? It depends, right? Most people would say that it's asynchronous because you have time to formulate or edit your answer, even if it's only for a few seconds. But it certainly approaches a real-time conversation sometimes, doesn't it? Permanence is another key word. What is more permanent and replicable? So when you sit down and talk to someone or call them on the phone, what's the chance that your exact words will last forever and be sent around to everyone you know or don't know? Well, I don't think that's nearly as good a chance as when you put it on Facebook or tweet it or post it on Instagram, right? Even iChat is risky. Sometimes someone could take a screen grab of your conversation and put it on Facebook. Let's talk a little bit more about this. Mediated versus face-to-face communication. Which is better, do you think? Is online learning better, or classes where you show up and sit in a chair in a classroom? Which is better? I think a good next question might be better for what? Better for what? Better for making connections and forming community in a class? Better for connecting with fellow students or the teacher? Better for bearing your soul on a discussion question? It really depends on what you're trying to measure, right? As to which is better. And finally, better for whom? Some people love face-to-face class discussions. Their minds work well in that way. They love the give and take and people stepping on each other's words. They pull energy from other people in a conversation. They love the messiness of a spirited class discussion. I'm one of those. But others, not so much. Others are more reserved. They like to reflect before they give input. By the time they get their thoughts together in a classroom discussion, the conversation has shifted to something new. They have interesting things to say, but they don't ever get to say them. So these are the people who might thrive in an online setting. And finally, very quickly, the social media danger zone. I hope by this time in your life that you understand how important it is to be careful about the image and reputation you are creating online. You may think those pictures of you partying and acting stupid and wearing less than you should in public are all really funny now. But what looks cute at 18 is really obnoxious and inconvenient at age 23. And most of what you put online has the potential to stay online forever. Here's an example. I'm not going to play this video, but this is a shot of Olivia Spower being interviewed by Huffington Post after she lost her teaching job at a high school in Florida because she had posed for some racy swimsuit photos. Now this, despite the fact that she used a different name for her modeling work. I hope you know that just because you make social media accounts private, they are not really private at all. Potential employers have ways of accessing these accounts. College admissions officers have methods for seeing your posts. My advice to you, friend your mom or your grandmother, and I am quite serious about this. Friend your mother or your grandmother and don't post anything online that you are not comfortable with them seeing. This is just a great safeguard. Guard your online reputation. Let your friends know they need to ask before they post pictures or stories about you. Not only will you be helping yourself, you may help them to start thinking about being more careful as well. All right, I know I've already made this point, but please read your book. It has some interesting things to say about social media etiquette, privacy, and finding a balance between social media and face-to-face time. Well, that's it for this week's lecture. Hope you have a great week.